What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. Today, we're going to be reacting to Pro Football Focus's top NFL free agents and where they are projected to be going. We're going to take a look at some of the contracts that they have them signed and which landing spots we think will end up being the best spots for them. All that and much more coming your way right now. Nick, we are getting ready for not only the NFL draft, but the start of NFL free agency, which is by far and away, outside of the regular season, my favorite time of football season, the start of the new league year. So, with that being said, we have some very notable free agents that are going to be on the move, possibly. And we got to take a look at the top 20 of them. So, let's start off with number one. Why don't you get us started?
Okay, so the best free agent available by far and away is Dak Prescott, and PFF has the Cowboys re-signing Dak Prescott 4 years, $158 million. That's exactly what he's looking for. Dak Prescott is not moving off of that 4-year deal. He wants to secure another big contract after this one, and they're giving him almost $40 million a year. I like the contract. I don't like the team. I think that there's other teams out here that are going to pursue Dak Prescott as soon as free agency opens up, and they're going to offer him more than $40 million just because they want him to sign with them over the Dallas Cowboys.
I agree. I think Dak Prescott, this is the deal he's looking for. 4 years, $40 million. The APY is 39.5. So, he's not going to nickel and dime them over $500,000. We're looking at $115 million total guaranteed, $75 million fully guaranteed at signing. Overall, it's a great deal for Prescott. It's a great deal for the Cowboys. I would like to see him in Patriots red, white, and blue, but this deal is exactly what we're looking for Dak Prescott.
Now at number 2, we do have Chris Godwin, and I don't believe Chris Godwin is the best wide receiver in free agency. At number 3, as you can see, Allen Robinson is there, and I think that he's the best wide receiver available in free agency. But as we see, Chris Godwin, they believe the Buccaneers will re-sign him 5 years, $110 million, $22 million average per year. And I just think that is way overpaying for Chris Godwin. He's a great wide receiver. He's worth no more than $18 a year. Chris Godwin had drop issues last season. We don't know if that's just because it was his first year with Tom Brady, because of the broken finger. It could be the mixture of the two. But you don't know if this is going to become a thing with Godwin, and you can't pay a guy $22 million a year with $65 million total guaranteed and hope that he's the guy that he used to be. So I think that you've got to be very careful here. And the Buccaneers, a team that doesn't have much cap space to begin with, should not be giving Godwin this amount of money.
I don't think the Buccaneers re-signed Godwin here. And you're right. I don't think Godwin's the best receiver, but teams are willing to overpay for players that were recently in the Super Bowl, specifically players that have recently won the Super Bowl, which is exactly the mold that Chris Godwin now fits. Coming off of the Super Bowl win with Tom Brady at the helm, teams are going to be chomping at the bit to get him out of Tampa Bay. They want to utilize his leadership ability, or quote unquote perceived leadership ability as a Super Bowl champion. They want to bring that type of winning culture to their team. Teams are willing to pay up the wazoo, as they say, to bring him in. And listen, $22 million is a lot per year for Chris Godwin. I'm with you. I would say anywhere between 15 to 18 is the realistic expectation. You add an extra $1 to $2 million on top of that because of the championship that he's coming off of. I just don't really see why he would get 22. If the Buccaneers sign him at 22, let them have him, because it wasn't worth signing him away from them.
Yeah, and don't quote me on this, but I believe this would make Chris Godwin the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, and he's definitely not the best wide receiver in the NFL. So big mistake there if that's what happens. At number
he's not even the best receiver on his team.
True. Mike Evans is better. True,
That's
true.
my boy Mike.
At number 3, Allen Robinson. They have the Miami Dolphins signing Allen Robinson to a 4-year, $84 million deal, $1 million less per year, 21 a year for Allen Robinson. I actually really love this. I think he's worth every penny, and I think Miami is a perfect spot for him. Can you imagine Allen Robinson and Devonta Parker on opposite ends of each other, just running train through some of these defenses? As a Patriots fan, I'd be absolutely terrified, but just to watch the Miami Dolphins work, this would be really, really special. And they have that number 3 pick too, so if they could get a guy like Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, this could be an amazing trio that they put together. The Miami Dolphins are going to be a team to definitely watch out for in this free agency.
Please don't do this. I don't want to see Allen Robinson go to the Dolphins. Listen, it makes sense. They have the cap space. They can absolutely sign Allen Robinson. You get a huge weapon for Tua Tagovailoa. You add him to Devontae Parker. And then, like you said, you have the number 3 overall pick. You get a guy like Devonta Smith, who is a speedster, a burner at heart. He can, take the top off the defense. Allen Robinson can do all the underneath stuff. And then you have Devontae Parker, who can go up and get all the 50-50 balls. On top of the fact, everybody's overlooking this one guy. They still have that pesky little tight end named Mike Gesicki. That guy in the middle of the field is going to be a threat for years to come. The Dolphins, if they can land Robinson and draft Devonta Smith, they are going to be arguably one of the best offenses this league has.
And not to harp on any much more, but Miami is in Florida. Florida has no income tax, which makes it a hot destination for a lot of free agents. So another thing to keep in mind. At number 4, Kenny Gallaudet. And I don't agree with this. Kenny Gallaudet has such a big injury history. I don't think that he's a top 5 free agent in any which way. But they have the Giants signing Kenny Gallaudet to a 4-year, $85 million deal, getting more than Allen Robinson, $21.25 million a year, $57.5 million total guaranteed. Look, the New York Giants obviously need an outside weapon. They need a true number 1. Kenny Gallaudet is a true number 1 when he's healthy, but that's when he's healthy, and that's not a lot of the time. They already have a ton of injury history with Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. Why do you need to get a third guy with an injury history that you can't count on? Daniel Jones needs solid weapons. Kenny Gallaudet is not a guy that Daniel Jones can count on.
Kenny Gallaudet is a really good receiver when he's on the field. And you talk about the injury history with the Giants. Don't forget, Saquon Barkley hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's their number 1 resource there. So if you're going to sign Gallaudet and you're going to have Gallaudet, Barkley, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and Golden Tate, all of these guys have rich injury histories. It's going to be very tough. Joe Judge, he might want to take a risk here, but Kenny Gallaudet really isn't the risk to be taking. I also don't believe that wide receiver is a huge need for them at this point in time. Kenny Gallaudet signing a massive contract like this, it doesn't make sense for the Giants to be spending their money like this. I'd rather than retain Leonard Williams rather than go after a guy like Kenny Gallaudet. I don't even see Gallaudet retaining this much money average per year. 4 years, 85 is a lot for Gallaudet. I just don't see it.
Yeah, that's where I have the biggest issue is the money. Kenny Gallaudet is honestly not worth more than $15 million a year based on his injury history. A guy that you can count on for 10 out of 16, possibly 17 games if they increase the league year. So I think Gallaudet, you've got to pay him for what you've seen so far, and it's not much more than $15 million a year. At number 5, the best left tackle from last season, Trent Williams. Yes, he is about to be 33 years old, but he is still one of the best in the NFL, and he is a free agent. They think the 49ers will re-sign him 4 years, $80 million at $20 million a year. That would put him near Andrew Whitworth's age, approaching that 40-year-old mark. And there aren't many offensive linemen that are built to last like Andrew Whitworth has shown. Trent Williams, he took off pretty much 2 years dealing with injuries, and that might play well for him because his body has gotten that reprieve from the football. But Trent Williams, this is a tough one because $20 million a year is a lot, especially going into this year where the cap goes down and the 49ers wouldn't be able to make many moves after this. It's going to be very hard for the 49ers to retain a guy like Trent Williams after having that season. And I think he'll definitely get near that $20 million a year mark, but I don't think the 49ers will be the team that signs him.
I think the 49ers will make it work. It won't be 20 for the first year, but they'll backload this contract easily. I believe that Trent Williams will be in San Francisco. He wanted to be in San Francisco. He liked working with Kyle Shanahan. They have other issues that they need to focus on. If they can get Trent Williams signed and sealed and ready to go for for the next 4 years, they're going to make quick work of this contract. 4 years, 80 million is going to pale in comparison to what the value he's going to bring when he's protecting Jimmy Garoppolo or any of these other quarterbacks that they may have who ends up playing under center. So Trent Williams back in San Francisco, I like it. I like the money. I think it all makes sense here.
At number 6, we have Justin Simmons, one of the best young safeties in the NFL. He's been on the Denver Broncos, so don't be upset if you don't know him yet, but one day you will. And they actually have the Denver Broncos re-signing Simmons to a 5-year, $82.5 million deal, making him the highest paid safety in the league. I don't know if he deserves to be the highest paid safety in the league. He's no Jamal Adams or Minka Fitzpatrick, but he is great in his own right. I honestly, maybe if the Broncos are going to resign him, they're going to have to make him the highest paid safety. But I think that if he knows what's best for him, he's going to go to a better team and take a little bit less money.
Yeah, I mean, some guys are more about the stature of being the highest paid player at their position. It doesn't come to every single player, so when that opportunity does present itself, sometimes you have no choice but to take it. I think Justin Simmons ends up taking a deal like that, stays with the Broncos, works with them through this rebuild. I mean, the offense has some question marks, but they're starting to get right. They got to fix that offensive line. Getting Justin Simmons back will continue to help the defensive secondary. I believe that as long as they can retain him, which it will take this amount of money to get done, we will be all set. But Vic Fangio did coach the Bears. Eddie Jackson to becoming one of the highest paid safeties or the highest paid safety at the time. I believe he's going to do the same thing here and help Justin Simmons get that done.
Now at number 7, another young safety, Anthony Harris. Not as good as Justin Simmons, but he is a Pro Bowler. They have the Washington football team going after him, giving him 4 years, $56 million. That's $14 million per season, $27.5 million guaranteed. I like this contract. I believe he is worth $14 million a year. I don't agree with him going to the Washington football team just because they already have some top safeties that they're working through. They've been drafting a lot of great talent in that secondary, and I think they're going to work with what they have in-house. That defense as a whole was one of the best last season, and there's no reason to go pay a position that you could use that money and help out somewhere else. So I think he's worth the money, but look for another team outside of Washington to make a push for a guy like Anthony Harris.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It looks like Anthony Harris, who was very productive in Mike Zimmer's defense in Minnesota. I expect him to actually go back to Minnesota. He worked really well next to Harrison Smith. So I believe that they're going to do really well together if he continues. But he is going to command 4 years, $56 million at minimum. It could even go up a little more, up to 60 million would be, a good price for him. He's a really good free safety that can also move over, play strong safety. He's a really good center fielder. Allows for your strong safety to come in and play in the box, help with run defense. So overall, Anthony Harris is a great player, and he's a really good talent. I don't see Washington going after him. Look for another team to sign him around the same money.
At number 8, we have Levante David, the guy who always plays well no matter what his age is. He might be 80 years old one day and still in the NFL playing at an elite level. And they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-signing Levante David for 3 years, $40 million. That's $13.3 million a season, $23.5 million guaranteed. Look, I think Levante David will stay in Tampa, and I think he's going to give them a team-friendly discount. He just won a ring with them. He's going to want to repeat that. He knows he can do it with Tom Brady, and he's going to take a little bit less. So I see the Buccaneers keeping him, but not at 13.3 million. I'd say more around 10 or 11 million a season.
Again, I see the Buccaneers definitely retaining him. Levante David was absolutely instrumental in their Super Bowl win. They are going to reward him with a new contract. They got Devin White in 2019, so they're going to want to keep somewhat of this this linebacking core together. We'll get to the third player on the second level of this defense a little bit later, but overall, this money makes a lot of sense. It'll have to be a backloaded contract. They don't have the salary cap to pay him 13.3 this year. So, as we progress through this contract, he's going to get a ton of money. But overall, it makes sense. Levante David will stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They especially don't have that cap space if they're giving $22 million a year to Chris Godwin.
That is for sure.
At number 9, Brandon Scherf, the right guard for the Washington football team, arguably the best guard opposite Quentin Nelson in the NFL, and they have Washington re-signing Brandon Scherf 4 years, $60 million, 15 per year. That would make him one of the highest paid guards in the NFL, and he's worth every penny. They need to keep this offensive line as much of it as possible. They're weak to begin with, and the only way they can get better is by keeping what they already have and improving upon it on the outside. I really like this deal. I think this is what we can expect is going to happen for Brandon Scherf.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's staying with the NFC East tradition of having some of the best guards in the football. As PFF points out, Brandon Brooks with Philadelphia, Zach Martin with the Dallas Cowboys, and Kevin Zeitler with the Giants. Now Brandon Scherf is up to, with Washington. They're going to have to do everything they can to re-sign him. We're looking at the top 3 guards in the NFL in Quentin Nelson, Brandon Scherf, and Joe Thuney. Well, 2 of these guys are up for new contracts, so it bodes really well for a guy like Quentin Nelson, who comes into his first real contract in the next couple of years. He's going to take a look at what Scherf got, at what Thuney's going to get, and he's going to say, okay, I'll take what they both get combined.
Yeah.
Brandon Scherf, though, will end up probably resigning with Washington. This offensive line was pretty solid. They just need to figure out that left tackle position. So retaining everybody else is going to definitely be a strong push for them. And 4 years, $60 million is right around what they need to pay for a guy of his stature.
At number 10, the first tight end on this list, Hunter Henry. I think this is a little bit high based on his age and his injury history. He was healthy last season, and he worked out pretty well for Justin Herbert. They have the Chargers re-signing him to keep him with Herbert, 4 years, $48 million at $12 a year. That is a solid number. Hunter Henry, if healthy, is a top 10 tight end in this league, and that's about what that slot will get you, $12 million a season. So I like the deal. If the Chargers can swing it, which they do have some cap space, I think this was a great fit. I think they got to try to keep him with Herbert at all costs.
Yeah, Hunter Henry is a really solid tight end. He's not a top 5 tight end. He's not going to break a defense, but he is going to be a very reliable target for Justin Herbert moving forward. And with all of the question marks surrounding Mike Williams and his injury history, we're looking at what the Chargers can do in the draft, maybe get them another offensive weapon. They have to retain Hunter Henry to be that consistency for Justin Herbert, because outside of Keenan Allen, there needs to be some more consistency, and I believe that Hunter Henry will prove just that. I think the deal is a little high, though. I would say more along the lines of 4 years, $40 million, make it about 10 a year. That makes a little more sense for Hunter Henry.
At number 11 is Wolfe Fuller, and this is an interesting one. I think he should have been the second wide receiver on this list ahead of Chris Godwin. Allen Robinson is the only wide receiver better than him. Wolfe Fuller is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, no question, when he's out there, and if he can stay healthy, he is a true number 1. I believe that the prediction is accurate here. They have the Green Bay Packers signing Will Fuller to a 5-year, $87.5 million deal. That is $17.5 million per season. I think it's a great deal. Based on his injury history, he's not going to break the 20 mark per season, and he'll be opposite Davante Adams. Hit him one-on-one with any corner, he'll burn every single day. This is going to be an absolute nightmare if they are able to acquire him and fill their other holes in the draft. I think the Packers, if they make this move, become the best team in the NFC, no question.
Yeah, and I believe Will Fuller is a huge example of, you can't teach speed. You just can't do it. And, he was playing opposite DeAndre Hopkins for, the better part of his career. And then as soon as Hopkins leaves, he shows what he can do as a number one wide receiver. So if you can take that number one skill set and put him at a number two opposite Devontae Adams, he can easily earn the trust of Aaron Rodgers. Now you have two huge threats on the outside, on top of the fact that, Robert Tunyon came on really strong for the Packers. I like this deal for both parties. Will Fuller does have a 1 game suspension that he still has to finish out at the start of next season. But outside of that, I think he's going to be, a perfect signing for the Green Bay Packers.
100%. At number 12, Taylor Moton, one of the most underrated right tackles in the NFL. He's finally up for his contract's finally up, and they have the Panthers re-signing him 5 years, $82.5 million. That's 16.5 a year for a right tackle. I think that's pretty low for what Taylor Moton brings to the table. He is rock solid on that right side, and I think there's plenty of other teams in the NFL that need to improve their offensive lines to make them more attractive for either their current quarterbacks or quarterbacks they're trying to lure into their franchise. I think Taylor Moton is going to get more than this. If the Panthers aren't able to pay this, which they've been cutting other players to potentially go after a guy like Deshaun Watson, they're going to not have the cap space if they get a guy like Deshaun Watson, or if they continue to keep Teddy Bridgewater, they're going to have to cut a couple more players to try to retain this guy. He is completely underrated and needs to be one to watch out for in free agency.
For sure. And there's a conspiracy out there that the Panthers got rid of Trey Turner not just to bring Russell Okung to the Panthers, but also to test Taylor Moton to see if he could stand the test of, the top tier talent that he had to face without an all pro right guard next to him. Well, it worked out in his favor because he showed that he was as stout as ever. And without Trey Turner there, he proved that he didn't need somebody like Trey Turner next to him, that he could focus on his own issues and his own abilities and work through them. So I think Taylor Moton bet on himself, and he's going to come out on top here. I like the Panthers re-signing him, but there's plenty of other suitors, including a team we just talked about, the Green Bay Packers, who might utilize his services for the right tackle position.
At number 13, Joe Thuney, the current guard for the New England Patriots. He was on a franchise tag this last season, and it doesn't look like the Patriots are going to be paying him the $14 million that other teams are willing to. PFF has the Cardinals signing Joe Thuney to a 4-year, $57 million deal. That puts him right where he should be, $14.25 million a season, $35 million guaranteed. Joe Thuney's going to get paid. If you remember back to the Rams Super Bowl, Joe Thuney was the only guard pretty much in Aaron Donald's career to ever stop him one-on-one for an entire game. And a lot of teams still remember that and want to get this guy for their offensive line. He is one of the best, highly underrated. He's going to get a long-term deal with another team, and the Cardinals would be a solid choice, but I think you got to watch out for other teams like the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who need to improve those offensive lines if they're going to compete.
Yeah, the first team that came to mind for me was the Seattle Seahawks. Again, along with the Cardinals, it's another team that faces Aaron Donald twice a year. They're going to want to take a look at him and say, you know what, if we can put one guy one-on-one with Aaron Donald, or even just help with one other guy and not have to triple team this man, then why not go after him and pay that guy all that money? $14 million as a guy that can become a a huge issue for a guy like Aaron Donald, I'll pay that anytime. So Joe Tooney with a team outside of New England makes sense. You said Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I say Arizona, Seattle. I think there's a lot of teams that can utilize a top three offensive guard. Knowing Bill Belichick, he's a guy that is willing to bet on his ability to find another guard somewhere in the draft or off the street or somewhere else to come in and be the next Joe Tooney. One thing to take a note though is Joe Tooney hit the first 3 years of his career he spent in the Super Bowl. He went to the Super Bowl. The first year he went to the Super Bowl was against the Falcons. Then he lost the Super Bowl against the Eagles, and then hit the final Super Bowl was against the Rams. He missed the Super Bowl his fourth year, and then was franchised this past year. So he has a ton of experience going to Super Bowls, knowing what it takes. They're going to pay for that championship experience, just like we talked about with Chris Godwin. This guy on the offensive line is going to be a leader for his next team.
Yeah, and that would be the only reason why Joe Tooney might get a little bit more money than Brandon Scherf is because of that playoff experience. At number 14, we have Shaquille Barrett, who had an amazing postseason. He was a little quiet in the regular season, but he finally found his groove, and he was absolutely dominant on that on the edge for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and helped them win a Super Bowl. They have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-signing Shaquille Barrett, 4 years, $68 million at $17 million a year. If this man does not get $20 million or more a season, this is ridiculous because we just saw Joey Bosa last season get $25 million a year. Khalil Mack 3 years ago got $20 million a year. There's no way Shaquille Barrett's getting 17 a year. He's going to get a lot more than this. There's no way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be able to re-sign this guy. He's going to be on a new team. I don't know what PFF is thinking in this one.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense here. The Buccaneers, I don't even think will have the necessary cap space to sign him. I don't think Pro Football Focus was even looking at cap space at this point in time because this clearly shows if they're going to sign Chris Godwin to $22.5 million and then they're going to sign Levante David, how in the hell are they going to sign Shaq Barrett as well? Doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. Even the numbers don't make sense here. I'm looking at a lot higher of a total. Shaq Barrett definitely deserves it. Again, he's only 2 years removed from a 20 sack season. I mean, we're taking a look at that and saying this guy knows how to win. He knows how to compete, and he was instrumental in the Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl. A team is going to vastly overpay for him. I look for at least $20 million a year.
At number 15, Marcus Williams, yes, infamous for his missed tackle on Stephon Diggs, which led to the Minneapolis Miracle. And Marcus Williams, besides that, has been a great safety, one of the best young safeties in the NFL, along Justin Simmons and Anthony Harris. And they have the Jacksonville Jaguars signing Marcus Williams to a 4-year, $57 million deal. Marcus Williams will not be a New Orleans Saint next year. They have too much negative cap space. They are $65 million in the hole right now. They're going to have to cut some big weapons, and they're not going to be able to retain any current free agents. Marcus Williams will be on a new team, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are a great team. If you look at the Jaguars right now, their offense is going to be amazing next season. Their defense is where the holes are. If they can get a guy like Marcus Williams to help solidify that defensive back, the secondary, this would be a great get for them at $14.25 million a season on average. This is a great contract.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars are in full rebuild mode and starting with Trevor Lawrence with the number one overall pick. I kind of like Marcus Williams here. It seems like he learned to keep his head up when tackling after the Minneapolis Miracle. And there's no bigger stage than to do so than to have a play named after your misfortune. But overall, I like the deal here for Marcus Williams. I think he's going to do really well. He did really well in New Orleans. The Jaguars are going to keep him down in the South, and he'll be a Jaguar for the next 4+ years.
At number 16, we have William Jackson III. He's been on the Bengals, so you probably don't know who he is, but he is a great lockdown corner, highly underrated, and they have the Bengals re-signing him to a 3-year, $40 million deal. If this is what they think he's going to go for, I would love the New England Patriots to go after him because this is an absolute steal. William Jackson has all the tools to be one of the best corners in the NFL, and being on the Cincinnati Bengals is doing him no justice. He deserves to get a little bit more than this, and I hope there's another team out there that's ready to compete, such as the Indianapolis Colts. That would be a perfect place for him to go.
Yeah, I take a look at teams like the Colts, the Cardinals, the Raiders, some of these teams that really struggled with secondary, or the Colts who are losing a player that helped them with their secondary struggles. Hell, even the Minnesota Vikings could really take a look at him. But at the end of the day, the Bengals, if 3 years, 40 million, if that's all it takes for William Jackson, then yeah, again, sign me up, because yeah, I think this guy is worth a lot more than that. I think he's a $15 million a year guy. He definitely showed that even in Cincinnati, where they don't win a ton of football games, he was one of the lone bright spots that they had, and this is his time to really shine. So even if the money's not there, expect him to take a shorter term deal to get maybe a more prove it deal. He's going to play his ass off and really try to get the contract that he's looking for moving forward from there.
At number 17, good old Ryan Fitzpatrick. They have the New England Patriots signing him to a 1 year, $10 million deal, fully guaranteed. I am okay with this deal, even as a New England Patriot fan. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's a great guy. I won't expect the Patriots to make the playoffs with him, but I think it would be fun, and I think that he would be able to work a lot better than Cam Newton in Bill Belichick's system. So I think he would work out. $10 million is a good salary for what he should be getting. I think there are better teams out there, even if he's going to go back somebody up. But if the Dallas Cowboys do not re-sign Dak Prescott, I expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys next season.
That'd be quite the interesting turn of events. But listen, Ryan Fitzpatrick is on a mission. He wants to play for every single team in the AFC East, and he has one team left, and that's the New England Patriots. They used to have a guy by the name of good old Tom Brady at the helm, and now that he's gone down in Tampa Bay, like all New Englanders retire to Florida, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick who's going from Florida to New England. It makes a whole hell of a lot of sense, but I'm going to make this statement. Ryan Fitzpatrick signing with the New England Patriots is contingent on the fact that they draft a young quarterback, because they are going to have to draft like a guy like Mac Jones or Kyle Trask, who's going to have the same sort of skill set that Ryan Fitzpatrick has, that can learn from him for the next year or so. There's no reason to bring in a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick for a 1 year, $10 million contract when you have Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer waiting in the wings already. You can simply just play them and not have to pay a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, utilize that money somewhere else. It doesn't make sense. So if they're going to draft a quarterback either in the first or second round, then you definitely want to take a look at Ryan Fitzpatrick to be their mentor. He's done a great job with the other quarterbacks that he's worked with throughout time. I look for the New England Patriots to make this deal as long as they draft a quarterback.
At number 18, Richard Sherman. We already know that the 49ers said they will not be re-signing him. He doesn't expect to be back either. So Richard Sherman will be on a new team next season. They have the Buffalo Bills signing Richard Sherman to a 2 year, $28 million deal. That is $14 million a season. This is more than they think William Jackson's going to go for, which is really surprising for Richard Sherman that is coming off of a big injury and is in his close to his mid-30s at this point. I think Richard Sherman still has great ability. He's one of the smartest corners in the NFL, but he's pretty much purely zone coverage at this point. He lacks a ton of speed and can't keep up with a ton of players. So I think there's a huge drop-off there. The Bills are going to get an upgrade over Josh Norman in this, but not much more. And I don't think he's worth $14 a year. I don't expect that Sherman will get $28 million over 2 years or $14 million a season. But Buffalo Bills are an interesting team to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, I like the deal actually. The Buffalo Bills make a ton of sense. Just to state the obvious, Josh Norman probably won't be back in Buffalo. So, kind of like PFF talks about here, Sherman is going to play the role that Darrelle Revis played with the New England Patriots back in 2014, where he signs for a 2 year deal, but the second year is both a team and player option. So either party can say no at any point in time and save that money. I believe that it's going to be more along the lines of a 1 year, $14 million a year deal where he's going to come in, he's going to play for a contender like the Buffalo Bills. He's going to try to help them get over the hump, get to the Super Bowl, and try to win that thing. He's been there before. He's won the Super Bowl. He's lost the Super Bowl, and at this point, he's only trying to take deals that'll get him back there and to win a second ring before he ends up retiring. It looks like the Buffalo Bills make the most sense for him, and I would expect him to be opposite Tre'Davious White. That'll be an absolutely insane 1-2 punch at the cornerback position, and Sean McDermott must be absolutely thrilled to get a player like Richard Sherman under the roster.
Right before we move on, I just want to add the Arizona Cardinals also might be a team to look out for. He's been in their division for the last 10 years or so. They know him very well. Patrick Peterson is off the team and they're going to need a corner. I could see them going with a familiar face, a guy that they know very well, and he knows the division very well, so he'll be able to work well against the Seahawks and the 49ers. So I think that's another team to watch out for. At number 19, Leonard Williams, one of the best interior linemen available on the defensive side of the ball. They have the Carolina Panthers signing him to a 4-year, $80 million deal at $20 million a season. Look, I love Leonard Williams. I think he's a great player. He is not worth $20 million a season. He works well in the Giants system as it is. He worked okay in the Jets system when he was there, but you can't guarantee that he's going to work well in all systems. And I think as it is right now, he wouldn't work that great in Carolina alongside Derek Brown and Yetur Gross-Matos. So I think that $20 million a year is grossly overpaying for an interior defensive lineman. And I think that going to Carolina would just be a big mistake for both parties.
I think Leonard Williams is a slightly above average defensive lineman. I don't really see him as much of a threat to really break a game open for any team. 4 years, $80 million. That's a game breaker contract. I mean, that is somebody that you're trying to, pay to become a new weapon for your team, offense or defense. And for Leonard Williams, listen, I understand that he was traded already in his career, in his very young career, but it wasn't because of his lack of ability. It's just because the Jets are the Jets. But the Giants, I assume that they're going to retain his talents, and I don't think it's going to be for 4 years, $80 million. I think he really liked playing under Joe Judge. He was a lot better. He was a lot more efficient. And again, if you take a look at our mock draft and us talking about Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, you see us talking about the Giants adding to this defensive line. It all predicates on the fact that Leonard Williams returns to the New York Giants. I don't see the Panthers moving on from a guy like K'Wan Short. I expect them to move on. I expect Leonard Williams to stay with the New York Giants and not change teams here.
And finally, at number 20, JJ Watt. We already know he's a free agent. He will be somewhere else. They don't actually predict the team here. They just say he's going to get 2 years, $25 million, $20 million fully guaranteed at signing. At 12.5 a year, I think that's a good deal for JJ Watt. If he's able to go to a team where he's got some help on that defensive line, he should stay healthy. I think the reason that he was getting hurt so much is because he had to do it all by himself. He was being double teamed all season long, and that just wears on your body after a while. I think JJ Watt on the right team can get back to being that 3-time defensive player of the year. And I'm going to look at the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think those are obviously the top two teams that we all have on our mind when we think about JJ Watt, just because of familiarity with Green Bay and Pittsburgh. So I like the deal. That's a great team-friendly deal for JJ Watt, and it could work on either team.
Yeah, I mean the deal makes sense. The deal makes sense. He's not really in it for the money. He's got tons of outside revenue streams. He's made plenty of contract money in his career. It's not about that. He's even said so himself. It's about going to a place where he thinks he can win. Outside of the obvious of Green Bay and Pittsburgh, I'm taking a look at teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Tennessee Titans, the Buffalo Bills. Some of these teams that are pretty close, the Arizona Cardinals, hell, even the Dallas Cowboys. I know that some of the Dallas Cowboys players have made it known that they have reached out to JJ Watt to stay in the state of Texas. I don't expect JJ Watt to sign a contract until after the NFL draft. I think he's a guy that wants to take some time, kind of wants to regroup, get his bearings underway, and then he wants to really evaluate the landscape of the NFL post draft and then figure out which team he wants to go to. He doesn't strike me as a guy that wants to rush this decision making process beforehand. So 2 years, $25 million makes sense. I would take a look at all the teams that we mentioned, and they would be probably the top 5 suitors for him moving forward. All right, that'll be all. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.